Hey everyone. Um, Welcome to our next set of Cyber Days. I hope everything's been going well for you so far. Please reach out if you're having issues or having problems connecting to something or maybe don't understand something. Um, I know it's really weird without us being able to be in class together and you being able to ask those questions right away. So please, if you're having problems, just ask. Please let me know. We're all gonna have to figure this out together and figure out what the best way is to have class together. Um, so on that note, I just want to remind you of a couple of things um, and some of the new information that we've gotten now from Mrs. Zanegri and Mr. Roberts about what the next couple of weeks will look like and potentially longer. We don't know what our future is going to hold. I was saying things before we left for break about this COVID-19 that I wouldn't say now. It feels like every hour we're getting a new update or getting new information about this virus. So as soon as I know something new, I will make sure you guys know. I wanted to go over a couple of things that I posted in that document. You still need to read it. That very important. Please read ASAP document that I posted in Classroom on the 24th. Please read that. Read it thoroughly because that is the expectations for what our online classroom will look like, at least for now. And I will let you know if I edit or change anything on there. Reminder that all work is posted on Google Classroom as well as your attendance form. So please be checking that every morning. Things should be posted by 8 a.m. I'm going to try to schedule it to post the night before, so 8 o'clock it'll go ahead and go live. That is when work is now, starting tomorrow, required to be posted by 8 a.m. So everything you'll need will be on Classroom. It'll be dated with whatever day it is date. And you'll click on it and everything you need will be in there. It is your responsibility to check that and check it regularly. I would check it more often than once a day just for any announcements that may come up. And it should email you if you have that setting on. It should also email you every time I post something to Classroom. Right now, I don't plan to host live classes. I know some teachers are, but I don't have plans to do that, to do classes on Zoom or something like that. If we're out a little longer, I may go ahead and decide to do that, at least for some check-ins. But as of right now, it's going to be like this with videos for you to watch on your own time. Probably by now you've seen Mr. Roberts' email about the distance learning and the expectations, and we're going to kind of have a bell schedule where you can possibly meet with your teachers. I don't plan to do anything with that time, with our class time, but that hour is yours to work on your classwork, to watch the videos, whatever you need to do. The assignment will still post at 8, but if you want to kind of follow that traditional bell schedule, you can work during our hour time. With grades, late work policy from the very beginning of the year is still in effect, and that policy is that I do not take late work on daily grades. So the work that's getting posted right now that's due the next class period, due the next day, that is not accepted late. You have 2 days to do it. You're at home. So get that stuff posted and get it posted on time. I am setting the due date timers for 9 a.m. So it will show up if you've turned it in late. Also, please do not email me your work. I am trashing that. Work is required to be turned in on Google Classroom. So if you're having issues getting things turned in, let me know, but that is where work is to be turned in. Please check your grades regularly. I am still updating work from before spring break, and I know I've been really slow, but I am getting work in. I'm slowly working my way through late work. So some of you that have zeros that say you've turned in work late, I've got your stack. I'm still working on it. So please be patient with me. I'm trying to do it as fast as I can while also getting these lessons out and ready for you. But it is your responsibility to stay up with grades. So please do that. As well as grades, you're going to get a grade for whatever assignment is posted that day. I'm going to try to do assignments. So whether it's note taking, it's answering a question in a paragraph, it's like the short story, kind of the short 300-word story you're supposed to do last class. There's going to be some sort of assignment every day. That will typically be due the next class period, so the next A or B day at 9 a.m. But I'm also going to take a daily 5-point grade, and there's 3 things you have to do to get that grade. So you need to check in before 3 p.m., okay, as required. You need to answer the daily questions. It's going to be something really simple. Like last time it was, what's your favorite Bible story? So something really simple, takes a second to answer. And the last thing that's required is that you fill in what today's assignment is. Now, it's really important you do this. This is my way to check to make sure you all understand what the assignment is today, and make sure you guys are comprehending what's asked of you. So that way, if you put something weird or you didn't get it, I can shoot you an email and clarify the assignment for you. So things like, oh, it's posted on Classroom, or you told me on Classroom, those are not acceptable answers. That answer is going to get you a 0 for the daily question. Make sure you get all 3 of those things done. They're all done in your Google form, 5 points every day for the daily question. Please let me know if you don't understand or you don't get it, okay? Also, I'm going to have appointment times available. So we're required to host office hours. It's going to work kind of like academic period. So from 11 to 12 every day, I will be available for instant messaging through Google Chat. And you should just be able to search for me. I'll have my chat messenger up, type my name in, it should find me, shoot me a message, and I can talk to several of you at the same time. So quick questions, hey, I don't understand the assignment. Have you got my work done yet? Whatever it is, you can just get on and chat with me, and that's going to start tomorrow. But I'm also going to host video appointments as well between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. So if you want to get on Google Meet, or sometimes it's called Google Hangout, but you want to get on and you want to chat face-to-face, I have those appointments set up. They're in 15-minute increments, and they're open to you to talk about whatever. If you want to talk about a grade or your project or your assignment, if you have a question, if you want to talk about something else, that's kind of like getting to come in, you know, academic period after school and getting to chat with me for about 15 minutes. We don't have to use the whole time, but they're in 15-minute blocks. How you do those, how you set those appointments are on that document on Classroom, that very important document. Please tell me what you want to meet about, just so I'm prepped. So if it's like a grade or something like that, I can have your PowerSchool up and ready to talk about it. So you can go on and set those up as you, if you want. They'll block out the times as people set up those meetings. So yeah, you can go on and do that. And then of course you can always email me. You might not get an answer right away, but you can always email me and I'll get to those when I answer my email. Last announcement, and then we will get into the lesson. I feel like I'm taking forever. But the last announcement is that our spirituality project is on schedule. So the due date has not changed, and the expectations have not changed. Now, I know Metro Library has suspended late fees right now, as well as you have access to all of their online database, so you can get a digital book. You can always order it from Amazon, order the book, pay for the book, either digital or hard copy, and they'll deliver it. Movies have been a little more of an issue. Some of them you can find on Amazon and rent them. But there's also formed.org. A lot of those videos I posted, a lot of the movies I posted were on Formed. And if you don't have access to that yet, I'm getting ready to put a document out probably tomorrow to show you how to get on Formed for free through our Archdiocese. So if you need to change your movie because of the new quarantine and restrictions, just shoot me an email or chat with me and let me know. I'm happy to let you switch if you're needing to switch to something that's free online. Other than that, everything's going to go on as scheduled. Reminder that if you put that you wanted to watch The Passion of the Christ, I do require parent permission to do that because it is rated R, and I think I've only gotten parent permission from 2 of you, and there's a bunch of you who put it. So a quick email is just fine with me, just saying like, yes, my kid can watch this movie. That's good enough for me. Okay, so again, let me know if you have any questions. You can chat with me between 11 and noon, or you can set up a video chat if you want something a little bit more in depth. We can talk then, okay? So we're going to go ahead and get started with our lesson today. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Trying something a little different. Hopefully this works. Share. Trying to keep my face a little bit more. Can I make it bigger? Oh, I can. I'm learning all this stuff just as you guys are. Trying to make this a little bit bigger or keep my face there so it's a little bit more connection. Hopefully it's a little better than just hearing my voice over the PowerPoint. So we are continuing our notes for my A-Day kids from before spring break. I know it was a long time ago. For my B-Day kids, this is a continuation of Monday's notes. Just side note, A-Day kids, if you would like access to the video of the notes from before spring break, they're on my YouTube channel with all these videos, so you can go back and watch it if you need to. But we're just going to continue our notes, so you can continue on the same page of notes you took last time. And you can send those pictures in to me on Classroom, just like you did for my B-Day kids, like you did on Monday. A-Day kids, just snap pictures with their cell phone and attach them to Classroom, okay? So let's begin. So last class we talked a little bit about the 7 theories that were against the resurrection. And then we went through and talked about why they didn't quite work, why they didn't make sense. So Dr. Peter, well, we'll go back to the theories. So the 7 theories, if you remember, they were that Jesus lies, or not Jesus, the apostles lie, so they make it all up and tell a story, that the apostles steal the body. We have that Jesus fainted on the cross and didn't really die. The apostles go to the wrong tomb. It's a spiritual resurrection, aka ghost Jesus. It's all a hallucination, or my absolutely favorite theory, twin Jesus. He had a secret twin that dies in his place, or the secret twin is pretending to be Jesus after Jesus dies. And we went through those and disproved why they didn't make sense. Remember, the biggest question is, where is the body? There is an empty tomb that has to be accounted for. What happens to that body? Where does it go? There's a man named Dr. Peter Kreeft. He's a philosophy professor up in Boston College, and he says that there's 5 options when it comes to this empty tomb. 1, we can believe that the apostles were speaking figuratively, that it was supposed to be a myth and not taken literally, which doesn't really kind of work because the apostles are talking about it literally. Second one is we can believe the apostles were deceived. There was a hallucination or ghost or something like that. The third one is that the apostles deceive us, so they're lying to us. It's a big conspiracy. Number 4 is he doesn't really die. We call that the swoon theory. So he doesn't actually die, but survives the crucifixion and wakes back up. Or the last one is that Jesus truly rose from the dead, and we get Christianity. So I want to look a little bit today at, we disproved those theories last time, but I want to look today for evidence for the historical reality of the resurrection. So why do we as Christians believe that this is a real, true event that actually happens in history? So the first piece of evidence is the historical validity of the New Testament. So what we know is, while we do not have the original copies of the New Testament, we have copies that can be traced back within a few centuries of Jesus's earthly life, which for the time is really good. We don't all have digital copies of the New Testament, or the paper would break down and they would recopy it. We don't have mass printed books. They were all hand copied books. So having copies from within a few centuries are really good. But what also we found is we have multiple copies of the exact same text found in multiple places. So all of these locations are using the exact same text, the exact same stories of the resurrection. We also have all 4 Gospels grounding Jesus's death and resurrection in history by connecting it to the rule of Pontius Pilate in Jerusalem and in Judea. So they're grounding Jesus in history by connecting him to a historical figure. The second thing is that it is a consistent belief within the early church. So we have different people, the different apostles, as well as other disciples. We have Paul, We have all of these different people all proclaiming to have seen the exact same thing. All four gospel writers mention very similar stories. St. Paul mentions it in his letters, as well as his own personal encounter with the resurrected Christ. We have different speeches in Acts of the Apostles that talk about the resurrection. It's in the Apostles' Creed. And we also see it as a key requirement, a key belief in becoming a Christian, is that you must proclaim belief in the resurrection of Jesus. So it's all different people, all claiming that he's raised from the dead, and all seeing him at different times and in different places. Number 3 is my favorite question we joked about last time, but where is the body? We must account for the fact that the tomb is empty. So if Jesus isn't raised from the dead, what happens to his body? Where did it go? Who took it? How did they get to it? If there was guards at the tomb. So where's the body? What happens to it? As well as what we talked about last class of women's testimony, that women, remember, were not considered reliable witnesses, that they couldn't testify in court. And so why is women's testimony used in all 4 Gospels, in St. Paul's writings and Acts? Why is it always a women's testimony that's recorded and not a man's testimony if it's not true? And then lastly, we see a really profound change in the followers of Jesus. So we have men, if you remember in the crucifixion, that ran scared. They ran away. Peter ran away after he was questioned if he knew Jesus. And they run away because they're scared. They're scared that Rome's going to come after them next. They're scared that they're the next to be crucified. And where we encounter them on that Sunday is hiding in the upper room. And, they have a choice. They've escaped Rome's punishment so far. They can go home, go back to Galilee, kind of slide back into their normal lives, go back to fishing, tax collecting, whatever they were doing, and kind of keep themselves off Rome's radar. But we don't see that. We see Peter stand up on the day of Pentecost and preach to thousands of people, baptizing 300 of them, putting himself right back in Rome's radar. We have people like Paul, who is literally killing Christians. If you remember the story in Acts, he is out there killing Christians because of their belief in Jesus when he encounters the resurrected Christ and becomes one of the greatest apostles, writing the majority of the New Testament. So we know that the empty tomb and the resurrection is a paradigm shift for Jesus's followers, who are preaching and truly believe he is risen from the dead. They abandon Jesus. They leave him alone in his crucifixion and death. And they become this courageous band of evangelists who are ready to stand up and not just live like Jesus, but are willing to die for Jesus. So we're going to try this. We're going to see if the video will play. My internet's been a little weird, so hopefully it will. But I do want us to still watch some of the videos I would normally show in class. So hopefully we can get this video to work.
Good. Jesus Christ literally, really, truly rose from the dead. It wasn't just a figure of speech, not just like he rose in our hearts or he rose spiritually or something like that. He actually appeared at the seashore to his apostles, and he was cooking a meal, and they saw him eating fish, okay? So he physically rose from the dead. But how do we know that's really, truly, really, really, really real, and the apostles weren't just making it up? There was a Harvard law professor, a really well-respected Harvard law professor, Dr. Simon Greenleaf, and he wanted to disprove Christianity. He said everything these crazy Christians believe hinges on the fact that they think Jesus Christ rose from the dead. It wouldn't even hold up in court. So he starts researching this and wants to make a case. I think he wanted to write a book about it, but before he could do that, he became a Christian. Why? Okay, what's going to put someone away in court for some crime? An eyewitness. What if you have a bunch of eyewitnesses? The guy's definitely going to jail. What if every eyewitness is willing to die for what they saw? Okay, that guy is so going to jail. That's what we have with the rising of Jesus Christ from the dead. Not just people who were drinking the Kool-Aid and dying for some crazy idea they had. They were dying for something they saw, something they literally saw. St. Peter was crucified. He said, I'm not worthy to die like the Lord. Crucify me upside down. That's why there's an upside down cross on the Pope's chair. It's not because he listens to Ozzy or anything, okay? Okay, it's a symbol of how St. Peter died. St. Bartholomew was skinned alive.
Okay, we're just gonna pause the video. It's basically over anyways. I feel like I'm in one of those like react like things with my picture up there. But kind of like what Chris was saying, eyewitnesses are going to help us with the story and help us believe. I'm gonna have to move my picture. So here are the 14 apostles. So it counts the 12 original apostles as well as Matthias, who is Judas's replacement. We hear about his election at the very beginning of Acts in Acts chapter 1. He is elected to replace Judas, as well as St. Paul, who calls himself an apostle and is called an apostle, even though he did not follow Jesus during his earthly mission. And I like to put this up here. I like to show this to you, and you don't have to write this chart down, so don't worry about copying it into your notes. But it shows the fates of what happens to the 12 apostles as well as where they rest. And as you can see, all but 2 are martyred for the faith. They die some pretty horrific deaths because of their belief in Jesus Christ. And like I've mentioned before, you know, somebody would have fessed up. One of these men would have fessed up and, you know, claimed that what they were saying was a lie, claimed that they stole the body. My money's on Bartholomew. You know, he does pretty horrible death. So my money was on him to fess up, but he doesn't. So let's take a look at how they died. St. James the Greater. Greater means older, so he's the older James. He is stabbed with a sword in 44 AD, and his body is in a church named for him in Spain. We have James the Lesser, which means younger, so not lesser, but he's baby James. James becomes the first bishop of Jerusalem. We read about him in Acts 15, and he is stoned to death in 65 AD. We have Thaddeus or St. Jude. He is shot full of arrows and is killed. We have St. Philip, who is crucified. St. Thomas is thrust with a spear, so fun. St. Thomas is the apostle who made it to India, so that's where his body is. St. Paul is beheaded in 67 AD in Rome. Remember, St. Paul is a Roman citizen, so he gets the nice death, quote unquote, of beheading. St. Peter is crucified in 67 AD in Rome. He asked to be crucified upside down because he doesn't believe he is worthy of dying the way Jesus did, so he's crucified upside down. St. John is the only apostle to die a natural death. He dies in exile in AD 100. St. Matthew is stabbed with a sword. Judas dies by suicide. We read that story in Matthew's gospel. St. Simon is crucified. St. Bartholomew, he is skinned alive, which doesn't kill him, so he is beheaded. And normally in class, I would switch to a new thing and pop up pictures of St. Bartholomew. You can Google image search him if you want. His pictures are very, very gruesome. They're like him holding his skin over his arm like it's a coat or something. And like I've said before, that's the one that definitely I wouldn't die for. So I think he would have fessed it up if it's all fake. St. Andrew is crucified on an X-shaped cross, and then Matthias is crucified in Judea as well. So I like to show you this because we have these men who, like I just said, were willing to run away and abandon Jesus rather than die on the night of his crucifixion. And these are men who 10, 20, 30 years later are willing to die horrific deaths for their belief in the resurrected Christ, which is evidence for the truth of this story. Okay, so we are going to now look at what is the resurrection? And I will put that back up after this, so don't worry if you missed it. Normally I'd have us open our Bibles and read, but obviously we can't do that today together, so we're going to pop it up on the screen together, and you guys get your wish. You don't have to read out loud. Okay, see if I can make this bigger. Okay, hopefully that works. I'll pop me back up in the corner. So we're going to look at what does the resurrection mean for us. So we've proven that the resurrection is a real historical event. What does that mean for us? Okay, what does that mean for me as a Christian, as a believer? Well, we're going to look at St. Paul. So St. Paul, in his first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 15, he talks about the resurrection and what it is. So he says, "Now I am reminding you, brothers, of the gospel I preached to you, which you indeed received, and in which you also stand. Through it you are being saved, if you hold fast to the word I preached to you, unless you believed in vain. For I handed on to you as of first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the Scriptures, that he was buried, that he was raised on the third day in accordance with the Scriptures, that he appeared to Cephas, then to the 12. Cephas is the Aramaic word for rock, so that's actually St. Peter. So he appears to St. Peter, then to the 12. After that, he appeared to more than 500 brothers at once, most of whom are still living, though some have fallen asleep. After that, he appeared to James, then to all the apostles. Last of all, as to one born abnormally, he appeared to me. For I am the least of the apostles, not fit to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. But by the grace of God, I am what I am, and his grace to me has not been ineffective. Indeed, I have toiled harder than all of them, not I, however, but the grace of God that is with me. Therefore, whether it be I or they, so we preach, and so you believed." So he's kind of listing off the different people Jesus appeared to. So to Cephas, St. Peter, then to 500 people all at once, most of whom were still alive. Then he appears to James, and then to the rest of the apostles. And then he says he appears to him, St. Paul. So all these different people all claim to have seen the resurrected Jesus. But if Christ is preached as raised from the dead, how can some among you say there is no resurrection of the dead? If there is no resurrection of the dead, then neither Christ has been raised. And if Christ has not been raised, then empty too is our preaching, empty too your faith. Then we are also false witnesses to God, because we testified against God that he raised Christ, whom he did not raise, if in fact the dead are not raised. For if the dead are not raised, neither has Christ been raised. And if Christ has not been raised, your faith is in vain, you are still in your sins. Then those who have fallen asleep in Christ have perished. If for this life only we have hoped in Christ, we are the most pitiable people of all. Okay, so the second part, he's basically talking about that the resurrection is proof of our own resurrection. And if we can't be raised, as some people claim, then Jesus can't be raised. So he's kind of connecting our own resurrection with Jesus' resurrection. Okay, so what's the resurrection? So it's 1 Corinthians chapter 15. This whole section is Paul's resurrection account and defense. So it's his account of the resurrection and defending the resurrection. And there are three different things that St. Paul claims the resurrection means. First of all, he's claiming that the resurrection is a real event. So that's that list of the apostles he goes through. That he is claiming, Jesus appears to Peter, and then to 500, and then to James, and then to Paul. So he's appeared to all these different people, and they all share the same account. I notice that he says Jesus appears to them, not that they've seen Jesus. So it's like an objective verb instead of a subjective. So they see him, it's a real thing, rather than subjective, they've seen him. Because you can see things in your mind, but things don't appear to you in your mind. So I can see, I can see you guys in my mind, right? I can picture you as if you're in class with me, but you're not here with me, not physically. So Paul's using that he appears to them as an objective verb. And he cites his own conversion as evidence, that I was somebody who was killing Christians, who was persecuting the church. And after I saw the resurrected Christ, he's talking to the Corinthians, but we can see the change that that's had in him. So he's citing his own conversion as the reality of the resurrection. Next thing he says is that Christ's resurrection is proof of our resurrection. And that's that whole section basically on like, if you deny Christ's resurrection, you deny our resurrection. And what happens if we deny Christ's resurrection and our resurrection? We deny that we can be saved from sin. He says that still too, you are in your sins. So it's proof of our resurrection and proof of our salvation. And lastly, he says that it is a transformation. We're about to read this section here in a minute. He's going to go on and talk about the resurrection as a seed that's going to be transformed through its burial. So, Jesus isn't raised from the dead like Lazarus was. Lazarus is a reanimated body. His soul's put back into his earthly body, but he's going to die again. Christ, instead of being restored to life, Christ goes through death and enters into new life, which he paves the way for us to follow him. So it's not just a reanimation or a soul put back into a body, but it's a new kind of life that we're given that only can happen through our death. So I'm going to click out again, and we're going to read that next section where St. Paul talks about what the resurrection will do for us. So starting with verse 42. So also as the resurrection of the dead, it is sown corruptible and is raised incorruptible. It is sown dishonorable, it is raised glorious. It is sown weak, it is raised powerful. It has sown a natural body, it has raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, there's also a spiritual one. So too it is written, the first man Adam became a living being, the last Adam a life-giving spirit. The spiritual is not the first, rather the natural and then the spiritual. The first man was from the earth, earthly, the second man from heaven. As was the earthly one, so also are the earthly, as is the heavenly one, so also are the heavenly. Just as we have borne the image of the earthly one, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly one. So, we kind of skipped the part in there a little bit, but he's basically comparing the resurrection to a seed. So we take a little apple seed, and we plant it in the ground, and we put dirt on it, and we water it, and what's going to come up? It's not going to be a giant seed. It's going to be an apple tree, right? We put an apple seed into the ground, and the seed will crack open, and from the seed will come our little plant, and we'll get our apple tree. But what we don't get is an orange tree. So the seed that is changed, the seed is different, but it's also the type of the thing that was buried. So the apple seed is buried, an apple tree comes, not an orange tree or an avocado tree or whatever, right? It's of the type of what was buried. So first he claims that our resurrected bodies are going to be incorruptible. So this means they cannot die or be damaged. So we're sown corruptible. We can die, we can get hurt, we can get sick, get damaged, be cut, whatever. But once we have our resurrected bodies, once we've died and gone through death and are restored, we're given our resurrected bodies, they will be incorruptible, they cannot die, they cannot be damaged. They're going to be honorable bodies. So we're sown dishonorable, we're raised honorable or glorious is how the New American translates it, which means we're not going to be weakened by our original sin anymore. So even though we've been washed free of original sin in our baptism, we still have concupiscence. We still struggle with sin. We still are tempted towards sin. That's, original sin has weakened our human nature. And we give into sin easily. But that's not going to happen anymore. Okay, we still have free will. We'll still have the choice. We're no longer going to be tempted towards sin. We're not going to have the inclination towards sin that comes from within us. Okay. The third one is that we are powerful. So he says we're sown weak, but we'll be raised powerful. So we can't be tempted. Like I said, so temptation is not going to have a hold over us. It's not going to have power over us. Then lastly, we're raised earthly, or we're sown earthly. We're going to be raised spiritual. So you're not a ghost, first of all. You will have a real physical body like Christ does. Remember, the apostles touch him, they see him eat fish. He's a physical being, but he's also a spiritual being. So we will no longer be limited by space or time, which is really hard to imagine because we are limited by those things now. But just think about the Gospels. We have Jesus at the tomb on Resurrection Sunday, and then goes to Galilee before the apostles. So somehow he can make it to Galilee before they can. He's there at one moment and then gone the next. He can enter behind locked doors. We read that in John's Gospel. You're going to read these appearance accounts. Probably next class you're going to read them, where he can appear behind locked doors. He can appear places he shouldn't. And so we see him no longer limited by space or time. This whole class has been on the Paschal Mystery, and the Paschal Mystery is completed through the resurrection. The resurrection claims that the only life that can be relied on is life that comes through death, through the endurance of death. And the new life in Christ is so powerfully real and good precisely because the threat of death is so powerful. Life and death, we see, are going to exist in this faithful death dance that forces us to decide where we're going to align our faith. If we're going to align it with eternal life, or we're going to align it with eternal damnation. Okay, so one more video. Hopefully this one will play a little bit better than the last one. And we're going to wrap up our discussion. I think my face is going to be over part of it.
I walk a line between the mountaintop and the desert, between virtue and vice, between sinner and saint. Often the fears get the best of me. Are my teeth too crooked? Where will the next terror attack take place? Can I really be loved by an all-knowing God? But love casts out all fear. And love isn't just an idea. Love is a person. There is a God that looks at me and not only found me worthy of forgiving, but worth dying for. St. Faustina said, one drop of blood would have been enough to save the whole world. Instead, he gave everything. And he would have done it even just to save me. And with that death, he brought with him a paradox. That when sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. It takes the darkness to see the stars. And you're called to live a life so filled with joy, so madly in love with Christ, that people can't help but to ask the reason for your hope. I've known a few people that have lived such a virtuous life that it shook me out of my mediocrity. Virtue takes work, it takes movement. Virtue breeds in hope. So whatever fear is deep down in your gut that won't stop nagging you, stealing your joy, know that it's worth the fight. Know that you are worthy.
Okay. I love that line where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. We're in a place of kind of fear and unknown. But there's hope. I was just reflecting on this today in my daily reading. I've been reading through some of the prophets, and the prophets, it's Hosea and Micah, and the prophets kind of leading into the exile for the kingdom of Israel. And there's a lot of what feels like anger from God. A lot of, you've abandoned me, and you're going to be punished if you don't turn your life back to me. But both of the prophets spend their last parts of the prophecy in hope that the kingdom will be restored, that we will return back to God, that he won't forget us, that he'll have compassion and mercy on us. And we need hope. And that's what the resurrection is all about, is hope. Hope that death isn't the end. Hope that we will conquer evil and conquer our sin. And hope that we can spend eternity with Christ. I also liked what he said, that virtue breeds in hope. That virtue is not easy. Virtue is hard. And virtue requires us to fight against some very real and difficult temptations. But as long as we keep our hope, as long as we hope and believe that we will overcome, hope and believe that we too can be raised with Christ, and hope and believe that we're worthy of his love, we can do really amazing and great things. So I just want to close with this quote from the UCAT. This is the Youth Catechism. So it's a catechism written just for youth. On their section of the resurrection, it says, "The disciples who before had lost all hope came to believe in Jesus' resurrection because they saw him in a different way after his death, spoke with him, and experienced him as being alive." The resurrection, like I said, it's about hope. It's about looking at things in a different way, looking at Christ in a different way, and knowing that he has paved the way for us to not just die and not to spend eternity in hell, but he's paved the way for us to be reunited to our loving Father as his beloved sons and daughters and to spend eternity with him. So that's it for our notes on the resurrection. Next class, we're going to move into the resurrection appearances and start seeing what happens in the 40 days between the resurrection Sunday and Christ's ascension. So these 40 days Christ spends with his apostles and disciples, preparing them to become the church, preparing them to carry on his mission. So that will be our next topic. Please let me know if you have any questions or don't understand something from the notes. Again, please look over that very important document that I posted in Classroom. I'm available between 11 and 12 via Google Chat, which if you click on like the 9 little boxes icon that's next to your profile picture, Google Chat's in there and you can just click on it and find me. If not, you can send me an email, or of course you can make an appointment if you'd like to video chat with me. Have a great day, everyone. I miss you all, and I will talk with you soon. Bye.